Hi, hope you're doing good. I'm Matt and welcome back to SuperCard Models, my channel, where I'm scratch building this 1/5 scale R34 GTR. What I want to do in this video is start working on all the little parts that make up the side window and the weather strip or the weather seals around the door and the main piece that runs from the C-pillar across the top of the B-pillar and down the front of the A-pillar. Just basically finishing up all the parts that make up that side window assembly. And I've kind of been putting it off a bit because, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to assemble it all. There's a few little kind of tricky details and shapes and contours that they all need to make, and they have to fit together in just a certain kind of way that's quite hard, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it. So a few videos ago, I started drawing up this piece here, so this is kind of like an initial template, if you like, for how I thought I might assemble this part. If you imagine this just cut out of a single piece of cardboard and glued onto the side like that, and then onto that I would basically like layer up all the various details. So I glue on this rear quarter window, and I glue on separate pieces for all the weather seals, etc. And then that would just basically get stuck on the side like that, which kind of seems like it would be okay, and it kind of looks like it would just be a flat piece. But one of the main problems is it's actually not flat at all. It makes a compound curve, so it needs to curve this way a little bit, and it kind of needs to curve around this way towards the back as well. And as you know, cardboard doesn't want to do that. So that's the first main problem. The second main problem is that this height actually isn't fixed. So if I just made this at this height and glued it on, and I sort of like set the height of that based on this particular build that I'm working on, that seems okay. But if I build this model again, or if I made a few kits and I got like you to make this model yourself at home, depending on how these pieces are bent and glued in place, this height can actually vary a little bit. So if I make this a single piece at a set height, it might not necessarily fit. So that's the second main problem. I think I might go back to the original idea that I had for this part of the car, and that is, instead of having a single piece like this, I might just make all of the individual separate parts, and they just fit together to fit the size of the build that I need. And also that way I can bend each individual part to suit the contour that I need. Alright, so I think the first thing I'll do is I'll start by making a strip that runs along the top of the door and up the back of the quarter panel a bit like that. And that'll kind of represent like a weather strip or a weather seal that runs along kind of the bottom of the windows. And that's just a strip that I've cut, a thin strip of foam board that I've cut from my foam board sheet. This is 5mm thick foam core board that I use for a lot of the build. So yeah, it'll basically just be a strip like that, but there might need to be a kind of an extra piece built just here where it crosses through the bottom of the B-pillar for it to kind of slot into. That'll help to locate it and hold it in place. And then at the front, it'll probably curve up a little bit to follow the contour of the leading edge of the door. And I might need to cut like a slot into this A-pillar part here for it to slot into, and that'll kind of hold and locate the frontage of it. At the back where it meets the C-pillar, I'm not too sure yet. I have to try and work out some kind of arrangement there for it to attach to, so I'm still working on that one. But basically I think this is a good idea because, as you can see, this is kind of flexible and it bends, and as I mentioned before, if the shape of these panels, the door panel and the rear quarter panel, varies from build to build slightly, this can be flexible and bend to the shape or whatever contour that I've bent those into. So I'll get started in Illustrator, drawing up the various details that this piece needs, and cut a new version of this and see if I can get it fitted, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's the first attempt at that part. I can see already that like I've made it too short for some reason. At the end of this part here should go all the way to match the end of this piece here. So I need to make it a bit longer. And also this B-pillar part, this one here, you can see the bottom of it is like too, like the bottom of it here should come out and match the edge of this piece here, but it's too far like that way. So I need to, I need to modify this B-pillar part, make sure it comes out a bit further so that it sits into this little notch that I've made in this trim piece. So yeah, so I need to make a few tweaks to this part here and recut one of those, and I need to make a few changes to this part here and recut another one of those. So yeah, okay for a first attempt, but it needs some adjustments. Alright, it's the next day. And what I did last night is I finished making the modifications to this piece here. I've cut a new version. One of the main things that I did was I added a tab at the front here. I also drew up, I didn't show it on camera, but I drew up a small bracket. And what that's going to do is get glued in there, around there somewhere like that. And that will give something for that front tab to glue into to fasten down that front leading edge. So I'll glue that in first. One of the other things that I did was I made this piece a bit longer. So it should be the right length now, fingers crossed. Probably the last thing I need to do though before I can fit this piece is work out where the slot should be for this tab at the back edge here. That'll kind of fit into a slot in the top of the rear quarter panel around here. So I need to work out the exact location for that, carefully cut that out, and then I can fit this piece. So yeah, let's get busy doing that. Great, so that trim piece is fitted up now. It's not glued yet. I probably won't glue it just yet until I know that the rest of the design for all the parts that fit around it is okay. But for now it's sitting there all right. The little slot that I cut in the back of the top of the quarter panel there accommodates the tab at the rear end of it pretty well. Great, so that trim piece is fitted now. It's just sitting there at the moment. It's not glued in place yet because I might make some changes to it in the future and I might have to remove it. Especially while I'm still designing all the parts, you know, for the rest of this side window area at the moment. But for now, it's looking pretty good. You know, I cut that slot into the top of the rear quarter panel for the rear tab to fit into, and that looks good. It fits nicely into the little kind of bracket that I made for the bottom of the B pillar, so that looks good. And then there was the big tab at the front, which fit into the bracket that I made and fitted to the top leading edge of the door, and that all looks great as well. So, yep. Happy with that for now. Time to move on to the next parts, I think. So you can see in the C-pillar here, I previously made some like 3 slots for some pieces to fit into there. I think I might make those parts now. And what they're going to be It's just some pieces of foam board like this kind of shape. There'll be 3 that fit down there like that. And what that will do is kind of inform like the contour of the shape, the position of the C-pillar outer panel. So yeah, I'll start making those pieces now. We'll see how we go with those. Okay, good. So there's the first version of those 3 small C-pillar kind of former parts in place, and that's looking pretty good for now. I think I'll leave those as is. I'm sure they'll need some more tweaks and adjustments a little bit later on, but as I say, for now that's good. What I might do next is start working on the actual kind of side window assembly. So this is just a rough kind of template that I've put together previously. So I can see that it will sort of sit about there, and it will probably be layered up maybe with several layers of black card to make the different kind of layers and shapes around the surrounding area of the window. And then there'll be one layer that's kind of sandwiched in between the different layers of cardboard that will be made out of clear plastic, and that will be the side window as such as well. So I might just start making those parts and you'll kind of see what I've got in mind for that side window, but I'll start drawing on those parts up and yeah, see how I go. So I've just done a test cut of that part out of paper, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll change my mind again and kind of err back to the idea of just having it as more of a single piece. Basically, I'm kind of thinking that, you know, anytime you have to make separate pieces, you have to join them again somehow, and joins just add complication to the assembly, which I don't want to do. So I'm thinking maybe I'll try and get away with having it as more of a single piece like this. But you can see, like, because I've made this lower, this door seal piece out of foam board, I've removed that section from this piece, so that kind of helps with bending it into the right curve or the right shape. And actually it's not really as much of a compound curve as I initially thought it's going to be, so that will help too. And actually this B-pillar section is probably a little bit too curved. I might recut the B-pillar piece to be a little bit straighter, a little bit flatter, and that will help with bending this piece into the curve and the shape that it needs to be anyway. So yeah, I need to make a bunch of tweaks and adjustments and refinements to this piece to make it fit a little bit better. But yeah, I might do that and then cut a version of it out of card, and I can see how that wants to sit in place when it's made out of card. And yeah, I'll go from there. So I'll do that now. Okay, so here's the latest version. I've cut this out of card, as you can see, and I've added a bunch of tabs in places where I think they'll be needed for for future details that need to be glued onto that piece. And it's just sitting there loosely, like I haven't glued it in place or anything like that, but from what I can tell at this stage, the fit and the size and everything is looking pretty good. It will need a bracket kind of underneath this bottom edge here to hold this curved shape that needs to sit into. So yeah, I'll need to make that, but I think probably first what I'll do is actually start working on some of the window details. So yeah, I need to work out how I'll attach the window there. I think maybe some small slots in this piece here, and I'll build in some tabs on the edge of the piece of plastic that I'll cut out for the window, and then I can fold those tabs over and slot them into the tabs, and that will hold the window in place. So I might start making that now and see if that works out. There's the side window cut out and fit in place. It's just sitting in there, like located and held in place by two tabs, one at the top and one at the bottom that fit into this like lower cardboard piece here. So that looks pretty good. Basically I cut that out of a sheet of this clear plastic. I bought a pack of these clear binding clear covers. There's PVC plastic and it's 250 micron and it's 250 micron thick. So yeah, it's sheet thin clear plastic like that. So yeah, that's pretty good for side windows. Awesome. Okay, the next thing to do is to draw up and cut out and make, probably out of cardboard, kind of a thin trim piece that will sit over the top of the edges and create the right shape around the outside of the window. So that's the next thing to do. I'll draw that up, cut that out, and work out how to attach it. Awesome, so there's that trim piece or the weather seal around the window, and yeah, it's looking really good. You can see now how it didn't really matter too much what specific shape I made the clear plastic window part, because that trim piece covers the edges and reforms the shape that the window should actually be. You don't actually see the window piece underneath that. So that layering technique works really well. Awesome. So there's still a lot to do on this section. I've got to add like the Bayside blue piece that goes all the way around all the pillars, and there's another trim piece in Bayside blue that goes across the top of the roof line across here, and there's probably some more smaller trim pieces that need to go over the top around the bottom here. I need to properly glue this piece down in the right shape, and I'll probably do like the Nismo carbon fiber looking garnish piece over the top of the B pillar here. So there's still a lot of work to do on this, but unfortunately I've run out of time in this video to do any more progress on that. So yeah, check out next week's video to see how I go making all the rest of the parts for that side window area. It's a really tricky area to work with, and it kind of seems like I haven't really done that much or made that much progress this week, but I take a lot of time off camera to just kind of work through ideas, work out how I'm going to construct things, and sometimes I try things and it doesn't really work and I have to change my plans, think of a different idea of how to construct something, and just spend a lot of time like developing and refining all those parts. So yeah, it's time-consuming stuff, but I'm making good progress. The build's coming along nicely, so yeah, keep following along, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.